What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of Sean Anthony Live. And I cannot express how excited I am for my next guest. Man, this guy, when it comes to radio in the city of Columbus, in the state of Ohio, his name rings bells from mamas, aunties, and so on and so forth. But
Baby
yeah, baby. But listen, he's been a radio icon in this city for more than 30 years, and look, so much to talk about, man. My good friend Paul Strong, welcome, man.
Man, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I mean, I'm nervous because I want to do a good job for you and this podcast. This is great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, listen, it's just going to be a normal conversation.
We've had many.
For those that don't know, this is my cigar partner, man. This is my cigar buddy. Me and Paul get together. We try to do it at least once a month.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we may miss, a month or so because we got other things going on, of course. Oh, yeah. You're busy too. But yeah, we normally get together, man, and have cigars and just reminisce and talk about life and all of these other things. But we're going to touch on that. But one of the things that I want to start off with this conversation, Paul, is the very beginning. Before you came to Columbus, you're from Kentucky, right? Louisville? How do you say
Louisville.
it? Louisville. So talk about your early beginnings in radio and who your first mentor was.
My first mentor was Tony Fields. I think you had the opportunity to meet him later when we came to Columbus.
Yeah.
But I started at a tiny AM station, AM 1350, WLOU. I started there as an intern. I knew I wanted to be in radio. I knew I wanted to be a part of a morning show. That was it. And I don't know where it came from, but there were some great morning shows in Louisville. I started my freshman year right out of high school, a freshman year in college.
Wow.
I had one of the instructors for a communications class, Don Schroeder. He was the top news anchor in Louisville, and he was just teaching the class, and he did radio for 20 years. So after class one day, I started asking him questions, and he said, man, try to get in radio. Hit every single radio station you can in Louisville and get on. Get on as an intern. Just get into a radio station. I hit them all. And there was a gentleman by the name of William E. Summers. He owned WLOU. I went straight to the top. And this guy, I mean, if you just Google him in Louisville and the things he did, WLOU was one of the first Black-owned radio stations in the entire country.
Oh, wow.
And so just doing the history of that. And so I got a chance to learn that, but he called me, returned my call, and told me to come down. I went down and I said, look, I just want to be a part of your station. I don't care what I do. I just want to be a part of it. I was at that station 7 days a week. All the time. If I wasn't at home, if I wasn't at school, I was at the station. And there was a morning show, Tony Fields. It was Tony Fields and the Morning Thing, THANG. And it was
that reeks of 90s.
right, 80s, late 80s.
Okay.
And it was Tony and Gary. Gary was his co-host. And being an intern and the youngest person at the station, I was not allowed in the studio. And they were, I could sit outside the studio and just watch them. They smoked cigarettes.
Yeah.
So the studio by 8:30 was just
filled with
smoky.
cigarette smoke.
And they're in there laughing, having a great time, drinking coffee. They had their little coffee machine in there and they were just having a ball. And I was like, man, I want to get in there one day. And sometimes they would they'd motion me in and I'd run in and I would just open the door and it goes, and it stunk, of course, because it was cigarettes and burnt coffee and, but it smelled so good to be in there.
Right.
And so they would say, hey, can you go get this, whatever? And I'd send me to the station. I'd bring it back. But they were very phone heavy. So they took a lot of calls. And I noticed that right off the bat. So one day I just snuck off, went to the very back office, closed the door, and called in on the morning show. And I did a character, right? And I was just like, what's up, Tony Field? Whatever we were talking about. And Tony loved it, went straight to the air. And then Tony was like, hey, tomorrow morning, call me back at the same time. And I go back out, just look and just sit there. Did that for about a month. And I would do different voices and just different people calling. Tony was like, man, who is this dude? we got to get them on every day. So one day I'm back there, I'm doing my thing, I'm laughing. Gary Rogers, the co-host, just out of nowhere, opens the door, grabs me, and I thought I was fired. I thought man, they're going to kick me out. He takes me, puts me in the studio with Tony. He said, it's this dude. He's the one that's been calling.
Tony didn't know?
Tony didn't know.
Oh, wow.
And man, I was like, I almost started crying. I was like, man, I just got here. Y'all kicking me out. And Tony was like, dude, from now on, you're part of this show.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just turned 18 at the time.
Wow.
And to be on their show and just learning and being in the studio. I didn't have to be on the air, just to be in that studio with them every day. And it started being their gopher, coffee, whatever, but just to be a part of that show. And then it started with the characters. All right, I need you to go do this character or whatever. And that's how it started. And just that feeling, and you've seen it, and you've been a part of it too, being in that studio with a group of people that you trust, that you have each other's back, you know where you're going, you know where you're trying to navigate to, and execute. And when it hits, man, you guys just close the mic. We can't hear laughter.
Right.
We can't hear applause.
Right.
But man, we close that mic and we go,
we knew we did something.
Right. We knew we created something. And that was something that it was the biggest and best high.
Yeah.
Like I never had the drink.
Yeah.
I like it.
Right.
I like this bourbon that we have today.
Why are you speaking of that?
But I didn't have to, because just that feeling alone.
It's a high.
It's a high, and it's addictive.
It's so funny you said that, Paul, because I was just in a conversation last night. I literally said almost verbatim the same thing. You know, being on radio, we don't have the liberty of getting an instant response. No. Only time we know how we impact people is if someone calls up, sends an email, or, you know, message us on social media. Right. But you know when you did something that was magical on the air when you cut that mic off.
And so you just mentioned social media. We didn't have that when we first started, right? So I knew we were making a difference when me and my wife at the time and my newborn baby, we were at Meyer off of...
I'm so glad you said Meyer without the S. You know,
we were at Myers, right?
You know, folks be adding the S on everything.
But we were at Meyer on North Hamilton Road, and we're getting in line, and this lady came up and was like, oh my God, that's her. She just went and I was like, you know how I am, just like and I wanted to panic, but she felt that she knew this baby. Right. Because she listened every day, and she hugged my wife, she hugged me, wanted to kiss the baby. The baby's brand new. I was like, no, well, you know, maybe not kiss. But that's when I knew, okay, I think we're making a difference.
The power
of
radio.
I think we're doing stuff. And people would ask, why would we talk about everything? Because people go through everything. Right. You know, how many, you have fights, you have bills, you've got crazy relatives, you've got a divorce or whatever. We had to talk about it because we connected with our listeners that way. And I think that was when because we didn't have, you know, outside the phones, people call it automatic, man, y'all crazy for that one or whatever. But you knew the active listeners were going to call all the time because it was the same 10 people. Right. But it was when you left the station and you're just out and somebody says, man, you did that thing the other day, and just repeat it verbatim. And it's like, wow.
So let's fast forward. What year was it when you got to Columbus? Because at the time, I was going to give my background. So I remember, when I first started interning in radio, I was in high school, and it was Power 106. It was
106.3.
It was before Blue Chip. It was Sunrise.
Yep, Sunrise Broadcast.
Yeah, Vince Frugier was the general manager, and like you, I was the young kid producing the morning show and smoking cigarettes in there, and well, they didn't allow them to smoke cigarettes in this studio. You had to go outside the studio, but you're still smoking cigarettes. And I had to fix his coffee. I had to fix Chuck's coffee and Andrew Ford's, stuff. I'm 16. Right. So I can identify with that. But after I graduated high school, went to Central State, went to audio engineering, I moved back to New Jersey. When I'm in New Jersey, and this is around 97, I'm getting word back from Columbus that this big company, African American owned company, Blue Chip Broadcasting, just bought out 107.5, 98.9, and 106.3. So take us when you first got to Columbus. How did that whole transition transpire for you?
So this is the business end of it. We're in Louisville. Blue Chip, Ross Love, that was in Cincinnati. He was the president of marketing worldwide for Procter & Gamble. He was retiring, wanted something to do. Felt that, and there was a local radio station that was going to be bought and probably change the format. And that was targeted the African-American community for many years. Ross didn't want that. So Ross said, hey, he teamed up with a couple of people, said, let's buy this station. They bought it and they kept it the way it is. And then he said, this is fun. Let's buy more. So then they came to Louisville and bought the 2 stations that we had at the time.
Was that B96?
B96 and Magic 101.
Okay.
And then when he bought us, because I was on B96, he bought it. And so taking back before that, Tony went on, from that morning show. Tony went on my very first at WLOU. He left and went to Wisconsin, after Wisconsin, LA, then back to Wisconsin. So they needed someone to take over that morning show. At that time, I was 19. They gave it to me at WLOU. So years later, I get hired at B96, and then Ross Love and his group bought it, brought in Tony as the VP of programming. So now you're thinking, man, this is my mentor. He's coming back. And, now it's like Tony had a chance to work at some big stations, some big major markets.
Yeah.
I was always in Louisville, right? So Tony learned a lot, and he was tough in the beginning. Like, I thought it was going to be easy to get right back with him and pick up where we left off.
What do you mean tough?
I mean, because he expected so much. Like, you had to, what worked last year or when I first started at 18, 19, it's not going to cut it today.
Right.
And this was, several years later. So I had to raise my game up so much in such a small amount of time, but I mastered Tony's system.
Okay.
And then Ross said, hey, we're buying stations now, or we're going to buy a station in Columbus, Ohio. Tony, I need you to go up and set it up. And so I knew Tony's system inside and out. So this was 96, end of 96, we started talking. And so being with Tony for a couple of years, knowing how his programming mind works, I started learning more and more and more. When Ross Love bought the station in Columbus, we listened to everybody on air. We studied this station, and I knew the station inside and out before I got to Columbus. I got to Columbus in March of 97.
Okay.
And when I got here, we were fighting, me, Ross, and Tony, because they wanted me to come and program, but Ross didn't want to pay me anything because, one, I've never been a programmer. And I say all this in a short period of time, but now I'm 29. All right, so 18, 19 to 29. So that's a lot of years. I've never programmed.
At 29?
At 29. I had never programmed, but I did mornings. I did morning shows. I knew how to do morning shows. But I knew Tony's system inside and out. And so Tony was saying, Ross, Paul's our guy.
Right.
We're going to send him to Columbus. He's going to be there. He's our guy. And Ross was getting hit by every program director across the country.
Wow.
Dudes that were in Dayton, Cleveland, proven program directors.
Right.
And Tony was like, no, we got our guy. I'm VP of programming. This is what you hired me for.
Right.
Paul's going to be the one. And Ross said, we just paid $6 million for this station.
Right.
We're going to put someone in there that doesn't know how to program? And Tony's like, yep, that's what we're going to do. So me and Ross were still fighting because I wanted somewhat of a raise to come to Columbus.
Right.
I don't know this market.
Yeah.
He gave me a $5,000 raise. We fought about it. The night before I came into the station, it was midnight, and we were on the phone, and he said, all right, we got to have a deal, right? And got to town, and we had to clean house the very next day. And this is where the business end comes in.
Right.
So Tony, we're in the hotel room and we were listening to the tapes. He said, "Who you keeping?" I said, "I ain't keeping nobody." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "There's nobody I want to keep on that station."
Right.
He was like, "So you got to keep a couple of people." I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe, let's see." So we got to the station. We knew what we were going to do. And remember, so now that's blood on my hands, right? But I knew what we had to do. I knew the sound that we needed. I always talked about a sound. I didn't hear it on the station.
Gotcha.
I mean, it was a station that sounded like they were 19th, 20th place in the market.
Yeah.
All right, we knew how to get to the top spot in markets that only have a 12% African American population. We did it.
So who was your first hire on air?
On air,
97.
Well, it was people that we kept. I'll tell you who we kept. Reverend Mel. Okay. Why did I keep Reverend Mel, do you think? You know me. What was I thinking?
He's local. He has roots in the community.
Local in the community.
Yeah.
Reverend Mel, after we had just got rid of most of the staff, right? We're talking about what we're going to do in Columbus and how we're going to do this. And Reverend Mel stood up, looked me right in my face and said, "You're going to fail. You don't know Columbus." And I said, "Sir, you're right. I don't know Columbus. That's why I want you to help me."
Right.
I said, "But I'm not going to fail."
Yeah.
I said, "We're going to win. And you can be either a part of it, which I'm asking you to be
an
a part
ally,
of it,
yeah.
or not.
Right.
But I'm still going to win. And I'm going to assemble a team here." I said, "I don't know Columbus, but man, I know people. And I know what works. You got to trust me." And, he kind of backed down. And then that was the fun part, was pieces. I had, what was it? EDP.
Okay.
EDP was a part of the team. Kevin Towns. You remember Kevin Towns?
How can I not forget?
Now, why did I keep Kevin?
Man
Because
around town.
the man around town,
Well,
Kevin Towns.
He had a lot of kids.
He had a lot of kids, a lot of baby mama dramas. I mean, it was horrible. But Kevin was the type of guy that could help you. I mean, I got that. I can do that. I need those people around.
Yeah.
And we just started building the team. And then we brought in Von Roy G. And then we switched the station from 106.3 to 107.5.
Hold up. You can't just glance over Von Roy G.
You're right.
How did you get wind of Von Roy?
That was Tony.
Tony did that?
Tony did that. Tony said, "Man, I got this guy, a lot of energy out of Memphis. We got to listen to him." And I was like, "I'm sold." I mean,
what was your first meeting like with Von Roy?
Von Roy was, the thing I like, and you'll know this too, I like cocky people.
Okay.
You know what? I like arrogant people because they're confident in their abilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Von Roy was cocky.
Yeah.
Von Roy knew he was good. I mean, I was like,
I can't wait to share this Von Roy story with y'all. Paul's heard it probably a million times, but yeah, man.
But that's what I like. I like cocky people because I'm like, man, he's going to be a power player. He's going to be okay. He's going to be fine. And we kind of bumped heads in the beginning.
Really?
Because Von Roy came from a system different than Tony's system that I was implementing. And I just told him one day, I was like, "Dude, trust me. If I'm your program director, you got to trust me because I'm going to need you to teach others here and have them buy in."
Right.
He bought in. After that, he was 100% in. And, then I needed someone at night that kind of sounded, and that's the thing too. I always had a sound, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want an all-black staff or I wanted a staff of people who were hip. That people, if they closed their eyes, they were like, "I don't know what color they are, but I think I could have a beer with that dude. I think I could hang out with that dude." That's what I was looking for. So then I said, I got to have somebody at night that has a sound where nobody knows what color they are and what their ethnicity is, but they like them. There's J Money.
J Money.
And brought in J Money. And then, from that, it just kind of more and more people started adding to Daphne Bell.
Yeah.
We brought her in as our news director.
What was she doing before that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you know the story of me and Daphne Bell?
I think you.
Well, me and her husband.
Yeah, Todd Bell.
Todd
I
Bell.
remember that.
Yeah.
So, but I remember her doing things in the community, and so was Todd.
Right.
And we just asked her if she'd be our news director. She, of course, did. And then, so the morning show could be silly and fun, but then I had a news person that had respect, that when she talked, people listened.
Yeah.
And that gave us credibility. And so it was just slowly piecing the station together. Here's the point. In 97, we started. In the summer of 2000, we went number one.
All right, you're skipping a whole lot, man.
It was a lot, but I'm just saying, going back to Reverend Mel,
Okay.
you're right. I don't know Columbus, but I know people. You're going to have to trust me.
So there was like 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, 3.5 years. We went from 18th, 19th place in the market,
Wow.
which everybody said, why are you letting all these people go? They've been here.
Right.
Because they've been there gravitating at 20th place in the market.
Yeah.
I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I wanted new people that, to me, it's easier. If I see someone with talent, I can show them the system. They already have talent.
Yeah.
I can show them the system, and they're going to take that system and just continue to grow and flourish. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people who nobody knew yet and start, because look, somebody took a chance on me.
Right.
Tony, he had a big position. He, had a lot on the line. Columbus was huge. And what happened in 3 years? Went to number one.
So before I ask you, your perspective, your story on how your first time meeting me, see you chuckled. Yeah. I'm gonna tell my side first.
Let's see if they match.
So 97 is when you start. So I'm hearing all of this. I'm living in New Jersey. I moved back to Columbus. And mind you, I still knew a few people that worked at the station from when I was interning, back when it was Power 106 before I left. And because I ended up graduating high school here, I knew a few people. And one of those people I knew was EDP. Shout out to DJ EDP. Because mind you, I applied it in Philly because that's, I grew up in South Jersey.
Right,
so I'm trying to get on Power 99 in Philly.
Right.
And I got this nice, pretty rejection letter. But anyway, I hit up EDP and gave him my resume and my air check cassette tape.
Yep.
I said, listen, man, I want to get back in. Can you pass along? Who's the program director? And he's like, Paul Strong. Can you pass it on? He's like, I got you, SA. And like I was just saying before we hit record, DJ EDP, Earl, is one of the few people that call me SA.
Right.
He's like, I got you, SA. Now, whether he did or not, I then started calling the radio station, and I had a system. So like the first time I call, it would be like a Monday, and the receptionist, and I was like, hi, can I speak to Paul Strong? Sure, hold on. I get his voicemail every single time. So I called on a Monday, then I will call on a Wednesday, and then I will call on a Friday. That next week, I will call on a Tuesday, and then I will call on a Thursday, and kept leaving voice messages. Now, mind you, at that time, I'm a new father, young. I'm working 2 and 3 other jobs. I had just got a job as an engineer at a recording studio because that's what I went to school for. And I'm working at the Bryden House doing security in the parking lot, and that's where I would call you at, calling, leaving messages. I'm sitting in my car leaving messages. So anyway, this went on for, I don't know, maybe a couple of months, at least a couple of months. Then one day I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot at the Bryden House working security. And I'm just chilling, thinking I'm going to get the voicemail. So I'm preparing to leave my, oh, Mr. Strong, this is Sean Anthony. I'm trying to work on my voice and leaving a proper message on his voicemail. And because the receptionist would say, hold on, and she would transfer me. This one time, he picks up the phone and caught me so off guard. And I'm lounging on my chair. And then I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm sitting up. He's like, hey, what's up? This is Paul. I'm like, hey, hi. I'm fumbling. I'm all nervous and stuff. Fast forward. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to follow up to see if you got my air check, my resume, whoop-de-whoop. And he's like, yeah, can you come in? I was like, yeah, I can come in right now. He's like, no, next week. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So anyway, long story short, he tells me I could come in, and I'm coming up there thinking I'm about to be interviewed. This is an interview. And he sits me in his office, and we're talking. He's talking, And I'm listening to him like, just like I am right now at the edge of my seat. And he's telling me his analogy. He's like, Sean, I'm putting together a team, like you watch basketball. I'm like, yeah. Like Phil Jackson, he's got his starting five. He's got his superstar. I'm just looking for, a strong bench, that could come off the bench and score points. And I'm like, I bought in. I was like, yeah, that's me. I want to be the sixth man off the bench. Then he starts talking to me about training, and then he starts taking me around the studio, and I'm like, this guy talking to me like I got the job. Like I was confused, but I just went along with it. And then next thing he said, yeah, I'm going to set you up with training to sit in with Teresa Terry. She's our assistant program director. And inside, I'm like, yeah, I'm all excited and everything, not knowing that I got the job already, but that was my recollection of our first time meeting, sitting in your office. It's been 30 plus years, man. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
or
I do.
what was your story
And
like?
but what you don't know is I had made my decision several weeks that you're going to be a part of this team, because how could I not? Nobody was beating down my door. And I was telling Teresa, that's what we need. That's the type of energy we need. That's what we got to have on this team. And so then, of course, we're busy. We're trying to win. We're trying to do these promotions. We had a lot of stuff going on. I still had to get approval from the GM to bring on more people. But everything was about building the team and having your energy, your drive, determination. I said, I don't care if this man is horrible on air. We're going to have him part of this station because you were so determined. So I knew, and I heard it. Like, think about it. And what I always said too in our air check sessions with folks, like, you can tell how somebody's going to sound by how they sound on the phone. Mm-hmm. If you're saying, hey, what's up? How you doing? Yeah, I'm all right. Or someone that's articulating every word and sound, like you can hear them move their arms without even seeing it. You know what I mean? You had that. So now it was like, man, this guy. And then, the way that radio changes, I started saying, man, this guy could be, and I was trying to think around the clock where it could, and I was thinking maybe nights, maybe afternoons. I kept going back and forth, maybe late night. No. And so it just, and watching you kind of set the pace of where you were going to go. Mm-hmm. And once you got into the station, you reminded me of me living at the station.
Man.
I mean, to me, there is no better smell in the world than walking into a radio station.
Yeah.
And I like being around other people that think like that. Right. Like, you get excited just looking at a microphone, you know? Yeah. What did I do when I sat down? I started like, man, this is a nice microphone. Look at this thing. It's so small. I mean, I was like, where's my headphones? I want to hear what I sound like in this microphone. I mean, I start getting excited about equipment. I started asking your engineer, like, what's this button do? I love that.
Yeah.
And being around people that feel that way and are that way and that passionate about radio, I got to have them on my team.
Yeah. So, I've told you this privately, but I want to say it publicly. Thank you, because you were the first program director to give me my first shot. And I will always forever be indebted to you because of that. You gave me that opportunity. But not only that, you coached me, gave me game, molded me, and mentored me, not only during the duration when I was with Power, but throughout my career. When I moved on, I would call you, I'm going
But you were still part of my team, no matter where you went.
Yeah, man. And that's why I felt like I could still reach out to you and call you and ask you, hey, man, I'm going through this with Keith, or, I got this offer here. What do you think about, what I'm saying? Like, and now fast forward, here we are, still linking up, talking, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's really, really cool, man.
In the beginning, you and Keith really didn't work out, right?
Nah.
Right?
Nah.
So what happened?
So we a lot
happened.
Where do I
start? And you both came and said, all right, this ain't going to work. And my message was, look, if it doesn't work, that means you're both gone. Like, I'm not going to move one.
Yeah.
That means you're both out.
Yeah.
So you guys got to get it together.
So let's get people up to speed. So when I first got on at Power 107, I was hired on as a part-timer. and I started overnights, Fridays and Saturdays. Then that progressed. I moved up, I would say, rather quickly, and then started doing mornings, Saturday mornings, and then Sunday mornings. Then it went to midday on the weekends, then afternoons, then nights on the weekends. And then my first full-time on-air job was overnights. Yep. And that was tough.
Very tough.
Overnights was tough because, mind you, you're only getting paid like minimum wage at that time was, so I had like a couple of other jobs, and literally sleeping at the station was there was a lot of nights I was there at the station. Anyway, so from overnights, I started to stick around for your show. Mm-hmm. I knew Paul was coming in to do the morning show from 6 to 10, so I would hang out and stick around till 10. So my shift was 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., but I wouldn't leave till 10 a.m. Right. And I became part of the morning show, and which was that was a whole, college experience, learning in itself. But anyway, fast forward, when I got the promotion, I'll never forget, January of 2000 is when I got nights. You offered me to do the night show, and I didn't look back. And that's when I really molded, myself. And I'll never forget, man, I tell this story to my students at the Ohio Media School, as a personality, a radio personality, and even as an artist, you can take this wisdom that you gave me. So when I was on overnights, I would, every morning when you would come in, I would say, Paul, how did I sound? How did I sound? What do I need to work on? What do I need to work on? And you were like, oh, man, you just got to find your voice. And when you first said that to me, I was like, what the does he mean got to find my voice? My voice is right here. I didn't get it. And then the next morning, I'm working, it's Power 107.5 Columbus. Is like, I'm trying all of these different things. And I was like, Paul, how did I sound? Yeah, and he was like, man, you just got to find your voice, man. Just stay at it. And I would just keep bugging him. And then finally, I started to get it. And then it clicked, you know what I'm saying? And when you find your voice, it's not something that you can really coach. You just gotta, you literally gotta find your voice, and when you find it, you'll know it, and it's there. That was one of the first things that you taught me. But then not only that. Anyway, let me get back to me and Keith. So fast forward, we hit number one all across the board. We having monster books in the ratings. Every show is just winning. We in the city, we in the community. Couple of years in, Keith, who was DJ Pretty Ricky, he was on the weekends. He started to do. His show came on after mine, so my show was 6 to 10 at night. He did 10 to 2 a.m. The Whisper Zone, but he would come in early and hang out with me on my show, and we would cut up. And have all kind of crazy fun banter, just natural. We had natural chemistry. Me and Rodney is his real name. I don't know why he chose Keith Jones as his name, or Big Keith. But me and Keith, from the moment we met at the radio, at Power 107.5, we just instantly hit it off. And it was always like big brother. He was like younger brother, and he always came to me as big brother. But our chemistry was just impeccable, and it grew and evolved. But when we first got together on the show, it was hell because, he was lazy on some things, you know what I'm saying? Feet kicked up, and, I'm like, man, get your feet off the counter, man, and do something, go edit like, it was just a lot of frustration, man, but we had to figure it out. But you
both had to find yourself. You had to find your role.
And
once you found your role, then it fit. But it took almost breaking up the show, breaking up the team. But that wasn't an option for me because I knew you started in, like you said, that January of 2000. We went number one in August. See what I mean? So we were so close. Once we got to number one, now we're gravitating in a space that an urban radio station has never done in Columbus, Ohio, ever. We were the first.
Right.
And once we got to that,
Say that again, man. Say that
look,
again.
I don't care. You can go back and check the ratings.
That's history right
What
there.
urban station? We went number one in the summer book of 2000. And it's never in the top. When we went from 18th place to 15th place to 10th place, everybody kept saying, oh, yeah, maybe it's a fluke, maybe whatever. Went to 5th place, people started going, okay, maybe there's something there. Went to number 1. Think about it. Power 107.5 was like maybe a 10,000 watt radio station.
Really?
Going up against 100,000 watt WNCI.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But I knew if we had a sound, we're going to get 50-50 white-black ratio. When I mean white-black, that's the bit, but we're going to get the Asians, Hispanics, and we're going to get everybody else. If we get 50-50, we're going to get that number. And we did. And it was because you guys finally found your voice. The entire station was clicking, and we won with our only promotion of Janet Jackson tickets. And that was it. And she was coming to town that, I think, August.
Talk about the anniversary party. We were the first to do the anniversary party, right?
But we did that in Louisville. You know?
Okay.
So it started in Louisville. And what it is, you know, we would pick a date. We picked like February, March. One, it's been a long winter, right? And then we wanted to kick off a year, but with a big event, but we wanted to really say thank you. And that's what we were saying. Look, we're celebrating our anniversary party. We're going to dress up. We're going to look good. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have great artists, and we're going to do. And people didn't know what that meant. They're like, "What?" And so think about it. It's never, because the only problem with the urban station in Columbus at that time, before I got here, they accepted 20th place in the market.
Mediocrity.
They just accepted it,
Right.
you know? And I always knew we always had to set a standard way up here. No matter if anybody believed it or not. We were going to act like we're number one if we're number 20.
Right.
But we're number one. We're going to act that way. We're going to say it. We're going to just, and so I wanted to do an anniversary party where we just stuck out. So the very first one, we had to have a theme.
What was the theme?
The theme color.
What was the color?
And the color was purple.
What was purple?
And I said, so
my
here's what
favorite
we're going to
color.
do. We're going to have purple, and purple. We're going to wear tuxes with purple as the color. And people are like, man, I ain't wearing no what? Right. And I was like, yep. That's what we're going to do.
So somebody go and pull up some old pictures of the anniversary
and we
party.
Look good.
The Power 107.5 anniversary. We all got purple tuxedos on, yo.
I called Romanoff's Tuxedo Place downtown. And I said, Mr. Romanoff, I introduced myself. And I said, look, we're going to do an anniversary party. I want my staff, I want my guys to come in there, look sharp, have the same tuxedo. And we did a trade. And man, everybody looked clean. Yeah. And once everybody got into the tuxes and got to the vent, and people from the community looked at us like we could have showed up in regular out, but they looked at us like, oh shit.
There's the
like,
team.
What's
There's the team.
Right? And it just ended from that point on.
Yeah.
It's just like I knew in my head, it may look corny on paper, but man, it's going to look good once we do this. And it got to the point where Mayor Coleman would stop by, his staff would stop by. We had people, I mean, it was truly a great event to be a part of. And it was our way of saying, Columbus, thank you for supporting us another year. We want to make this about you. So dress up, look good, and let's have a great time.
Hey, man, how does it feel? And I was saying this before we started recording. You fathered a lot of these radio personalities now they're your sons.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I'm one of them.
Yep.
How does it feel, man, knowing that you had that kind of impact?
It's funny because your engineer was like, yeah, I know Justin Love. And I'm thinking like, yeah, I know Justin Love too. Like, I brought him up.
Right.
And so he was like, those guys came from under you. It's like, yeah. And it's funny because Justin was another dude I think he was at the Christian station.
Yep.
Bugging me, always at the station. I wanted him on the team. Kanata. You know, big man Kanata. You know how he got the job, right?
He came in right after me.
Right. But you know how he got the job?
No.
His mom.
Oh, really?
Called me and left a message. my son has been trying to get in touch with you. He needs a job. I don't know why you are not interviewing my son.
It's crazy because I used to hear Kanata during that time prior to me getting on the AM station doing like weather breaks.
Right.
At like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm listening to George Norrie, this old crazy conspiracy talk show.
Right.
I'm on my way to, working for UPS or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, it's the big man. Because I remember Kanata from just school. He went to Walnut Ridge. I went to Independence. But anyway, I didn't know his mom called. His
mom, man, she went off on me on voicemail. And I was like, man, I got to get in touch with this dude because his mom is funny. So and he's funny.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this guy's got to be a part of the morning show. So that's how he came up. But it was, at that point everything was finally clicking. I had all the pieces in the right places. And then it just, once you get to number one,
and Paul,
now you got to maintain.
We gelled, man. We were tight. Like, and I don't mean this in just no cliche way. Like, we literally were like a family. You know what I'm saying? We went. And I learned a lot, not only from you, but I learned a lot from Von Roy.
Sure.
Von Roy was the first person, because here's the thing, I didn't care anything about no clubs, no parties or anything. Right. I wanted to crack the mic.
Right.
I wanted to be in the studio. But Von Roy was the one that taught me. He was like, yo, Sean Anthony, you have to go into the community. You got to be in the streets. Don't look at the club as the party. We party, boy. Yeah, my God, we party. But he was like, you got to get out there and let the people meet the people that listen to you. And it changed everything. Because let me tell you the first time, like you said, you had that epiphany when you, in Louisville, when the lady came up to you and your wife and your baby, act like she knew your baby.
That was here in Columbus.
Oh, that was here in Columbus?
That was in Columbus. So
this was after a few months I've been on the morning show with you. I'm part of the Power Morning crew. And remember the 1-800 pickup line? What was it called?
Yeah, we did that for a little bit. Right. The hookup line?
The hookup line.
The hookup line.
So Paul made me one of the butt of the jokes to promote this Power 107 hookup line. I'm young, I'm single. So he's like, yeah, Sean Anthony creating a profile. And I was just the butt of the jokes, you know what I'm saying, which I was cool with. And Brian Scott was doing this thing with Studio 69. And mind you, I didn't care anything about no clubs or anything, but Brian Scott was like, man, you should come on out, we having a big party, this, that, and the third. Everybody's gonna be coming. I get up there to the Studio 69, and I can't remember who was DJing. It might have been Little Man, or it might have been, I can't remember who the DJ was. It probably was DJ Little Man. But the DJ shouted me out, which was new to me. I didn't know that they knew who I was, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, we got Sean Anthony in the building from Power 107.5. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And then next thing you know, people started crowding around me. Blew my mind.
Right.
Blew my mind. And
and it was from just the morning show.
Just me being on the morning show. I didn't even have my own show. I probably did like the 50 break and the 20 break, overnights at that time. But yeah, it was crazy, man. So fast forward, me and Keith move on. We get offers. Me and Keith sent packages all across the country. We sent packages to Detroit, Philadelphia, Houston, Indianapolis, and Baltimore. And we got feedback from most of them, but we ended up going to Detroit. Things changed when we left. So can you talk about the transition of, management coming in, consultants coming in, and how was that, man, after we had something working so well?
Yeah, that's everything changes. Nothing stays the same. It becomes political, or it becomes just more business. When Radio 1 took over, Radio 1 had their own plan and their, vision of how they wanted things to be. Radio 1, I stayed with them, for many years, but they always said, we got our own corporate morning show. We don't have local stations. And it got to the point where it was us and Houston. The Mad Hatter was the only live Radio 1
local morning show.
Wow.
Wow.
Everything was, oh man, what's the gentleman's name?
Russ Parr.
Russ Parr. Everything was Russ Parr. Russ Parr, huge talent.
Yeah.
I love Russ Parr. When we would do events in Jamaica as Radio 1, right? I'd hang out with Russ. And, he would even say, man, I'm coming for your city, because he wanted that piece too. He was in Dayton or he was in Cincinnati. Why isn't he in Columbus? And it just showed me then that it's not about the connection. We worked so hard for that connection.
Yeah.
And then it just got so big to where it was like, it's not about connections anymore. It's about having our corporate morning show and having that face and voice in all the markets. And so I would always go in to Misty Jordan and Kanata and say, guys, let's do this next ratings book like it's our last one. Let's have as much fun. Whatever we did last book, let's do something bigger this month. Let's do, and the ratings kept saving us. And as soon as the ratings would drop off, I knew we were out. But then it got to the point, Sean, where, I started knowing that my days were numbered. You get to a certain point where you've done everything. And, at the time I was program director of 3 radio stations, and the morning co-host. Then I became operations manager and still doing the morning show. And it wasn't fun anymore. And then my daughters got to the point where they were listening to music, right? Not one time did they listen to the radio for their music. They were listening on their phones.
Yeah.
And so I started saying, whoa,
Options.
This is like, my girls couldn't tell me one thing about who's on power.
Right.
They don't listen to the radio.
Yeah.
And then when they did, they were like, you guys said y'all playing this first. I had it on my phone
right.
3 months now or whatever. So I knew then, it's like, things are changing, right?
Yeah.
Like you knew. And it just got to the point where I had to put a date and time on when I'm going to exit. Like it's time to get out.
So let's pivot there, man. And, I could talk to you for hours, man. We do this anyway.
All the time.
Recently, you hung up your headphones, man.
Yeah. Yep.
You were on Throwback 105.3.
iHeartRadio.
And we talk all throughout this duration, man. Right. What made you say, look, I'm done? Because you look, man, Paul, you still. You probably will disagree, and we talked about this, but we can do radio till we're 80.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We really can. It may not be a hip hop format, a young format.
Right.
We can still do radio, but what made you hang the headphones up, man?
So the first time I left Radio 1, it's 25 years, right? And I knew I had to get out. I just knew my days were numbered. I was making the most that I could make. Radio was changing. So I got out. I was out for 6 years. Did not listen to the radio. I couldn't tell you one thing about local radio stations at all. And then iHeart came calling. Hey, we're going to do this station called Throwback. Play old school, classic hip hop, R&B. And I fought it for a while. And then I started getting that feeling in my stomach. Like, man, I wonder if I still got it. I wonder if I could still have fun.
Yeah.
Came back in 2018. And it was like I never left. You know what I mean? It was fun. The station didn't have a strong signal.
Right.
So a lot of people didn't know I was back. But it was fun. I was doing it not for my main source of income.
Right.
But just having fun. And it was fun the first year, the second year, the third year. Fourth year, okay. It's not fun as it was year 1. And then going into my 5th year and seeing people like you doing what you're doing, seeing people like City News, and that energy and that I didn't have. And so I got to the point where I was saying, look, as a program director, what would I do with that talent? That is not, it would say, maybe we need to find something else for you.
Yeah.
So I started saying, look, if I can't do it my best, if I can't give it my all and compete with Sean Anthony right across the street, man, it's time to hang it up. And I knew I couldn't compete against you. Because we would, when you have a great break, I'd be like, man, I hit you on social media, like Instagram. I said, boy, that break was hot. I'm going to have to get you next week or whatever, next time I was on. But then it got to the point where I was like, oh shit, you sounded good. Like, I don't sound like that anymore. And so I couldn't keep up. I couldn't compete. And think about the people in iHeart. They were some of the biggest radio folks making the most money. If I couldn't feel I can walk down the hallway with those guys, then I need to get out. And that's what I did. It was time. And I, even when I called Michael McCoy, the program director over there, and I said, I don't have it. I want to go out sounding good instead of going out being defeated.
Right.
I want to go out once again on my own terms.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to tell me I'm done. I want to say I'm done. And I think that's very important because I know a lot of radio people who were let go too soon in their mind. And all they feel like is, man, I got to get back on the air. I got to get back on the air.
Yeah.
And I, if anything, I want to be an advocate to say, man, there's other ways out there to make money. There's other ways out there.
Yeah.
Take everything you learn from radio
Yes.
and putting into something new. What did we do on the air? We marketed. We were sales.
Yeah.
Take those skills and go into something else.
That's what Keith is doing.
That's what you got to do.
That's what Keith is. And you said something, man, that's really important, man. And I want to get your take on this because, and I know we've been talking for almost an hour now, man, but it's a different energy when you go back into terrestrial radio or music format radio, and that not being your main source of income.
Right.
It's a different. It's a more empowering,
Right.
more in control of your destiny.
Right.
And a lot of radio personalities don't have that liberty.
Right.
You had that liberty. I have that liberty. Talk about that because
But it's still a privilege. See, that's what the thing.
it's a privilege.
Never take advantage of that privilege. Like,
You can't
I
take it for
didn't-
granted.
You cannot, and you can't think it's any less, or you can't think that you're too good or better than anybody. You're just at that time on the air. You're a jock, and your job is to do the best break you can every single time you open that microphone. And so that I never took for granted.
Right.
And I always knew that was the utmost importance to make that break the best it could be.
I posted something like that on social media not too long ago, getting ready to promote my show. That very words, it's a privilege to
Always
do
a privilege.
to be on the radio
Yep.
this Saturday and Sundays here on Magic 95.5. Look, man, Paul, we could do this for
I know,
hours.
man. It could keep going.
Listen,
and I know,
but we're gonna have you
I
back.
know we've got a time limit here, but
we're gonna
I
have
just
you back.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Listen, Paul, I want to tell you publicly, man, thank you again. I love you, man. I appreciate you as a friend, a mentor, and all of that, man. And let's go smoke a cigar. But anyway, how can people follow you on social media, man?
I still have the Paul Strong on air. It's just, now it's kind of sitting in limbo because I'm not on air. But to me, I still post things that I find funny. I still post things like get out and register to vote and then go to the polls and vote. Right now, more than ever, you got to exercise your right to vote. Look at the times we're in, and if you do not register and if you do not vote, you don't have a say in anything, and you can't say anything. So make sure you do that. So I use the platform just to talk about stuff in the community and things like that. But Paul Strong on air on IG.
God, man, listen, thank you again. Listen, guys, we definitely appreciate you checking out this awesome, awesome interview. This is Columbus, Ohio history right here, just shared in, 45 minutes or so with Paul Strong, the great Paul Strong. Thank you for checking out Sean Anthony Live. Peace.